We all probably know at least the gist of the CIA's Cold War MK-Ultra project. What with its infamous LSD and so-called mind control experiments. Those are the most well-known experiments at least. But there were other series of kooky projects involving tinkering with the paranormal across several agencies and departments, even including the Pentagon. Think telepathy, remote viewing, telekinesis, etc. A lot of the ESP, extrasensory perception stuff, it often gets lumped together under Project Stargate and some media reporting. Though in reality, Stargate was just the biggest in a family of sister projects, each involving testing the efficacy of various types of psychic abilities. This isn't even conspiracy theory stuff yet. All of this is outlined in publicly available declassified documents. That being said, what's been publicly released isn't all that was looked into by the ever-diligent US federal government at the time. I know this because my recently deceased father knew this, and he's the kind to write things down. You see, since his death a couple of weeks ago, my siblings and I have been going through his belongings to variously divvy up, sell, or give away. And boy did I find some interesting documents and lengthy personal notes. My dad was actually in the Defense Intelligence Agency for most of my lifetime, at least as far as I ever knew. I'll get to that little qualification in a bit, don't you worry. And he was usually, and unsurprisingly, pretty tight-lipped about his work life, even with his family. Heck, he wasn't exactly a very open or expressive man to begin with. Maybe that's why he got so far in his field, who knows. But far he did get, and judging by the documents that I had found hidden in a loose floorboard under his bookshelf, like he's a mysterious character in a frickin' spy movie. He got a lot further up than even his immediate family like myself ever realized. A lot of his later notes had to do with something that actually affects me personally, a phenomenon called street light interference, and it arguably seems about as mundane as a paranormal phenomenon can get at first glance. It literally just refers to the fact that some people, myself included, will sometimes at a rate above random chance have streetlights go out when approaching or passing underneath them. It's as if we're somehow causing it to happen. Now it may sound a little dumb, but bear with me. For one thing, there have actually been studies and books and such about this stuff. There's even a nickname given to us. Sliders. Yeah, I hate it, I'm not gonna lie. But I didn't come up with it. Anyway, remember when I mentioned the ESP-related family of projects codenamed Stargate? My dad was apparently a key part of Project Oversight. It's still insane to me to imagine my cantankerous yet cartoonishly dull butthole of a father. Rest in peace, Dad, I love you. Dropping us off at school after torturing us with Christian rock on the radio, or rants about the God-hating commies, only to then go to work and administer everything from experimental drugs to esoteric metaphysical procedures taken straightly from random ancient Eastern philosophical and or holy text to people, just to see if they can sense the grapes in the other room, or make the lights flash on and off in Morse code with their mind. But hey, according to his own notes, yeah, those examples come straight from there. And in regard to the latter, they apparently had some success. But then things get really weird. It's also where things start to really diverge from the public record. The declassified documents mostly come from when the broader program was assessed and subsequently shut down as a failure by the CIA after they took it over from the DoD in 1995. I'm not saying what was declassified to the public are all falsified documents and results. I'm saying they were selectively chosen in order to craft a particular narrative of across-the-board failure. Update. You see, the psychic, electric manipulation line of tests that I mentioned my dad being involved in is one of those still secret counterexamples. At least if Dad's likely smuggled documents are to be believed. In actuality, that particular line of research was apparently so successful that it had spawned its own subproject, to which my father was assigned as one of the top administrators or something. It's hard to say for sure even in their own internal documentation and correspondence. There's a ton of internal jargon and code words. It's very frustrating, but I guess that's probably the point. In case they ever did get stolen or, say, smuggled out by a disenchanted officer. Hypothetically, of course. Anyway, like I said, if my father is to be believed, then Electro psionics, yeah, their term, not kidding, eventually started progressing rapidly. A rare success in a family of ESP projects, which mostly ended in relative failure. You can feel the devious excitement even within the ceaselessly clinical jargon of the project notes, as these researchers raved about potential utility factors like nigh undetectable ultrabative messaging protocols, or voluntary electromechanical sabotage of enemy operations. Practically at will began to seem like feasible military and intelligence procedures, until it all came to an unexplained and grinding halt. Higher-ups came down hard on the projects, implemented new protocols, and things just sort of got lost in the process somehow. My father was eventually reassigned, but he never let go of this idea that he was somehow drugged himself. He wrote about these blocks of important time and work that seemed to somehow just be missing from his mind. Now I'll just quote his notes directly right here. Parts of my memory have been amputated with a surgical precision, replaced with a hazy and frankly unrealistic proxy of generic busy work, and long hours of filling nameless forms or overseeing new testing protocols to which no specifics can be recalled. I don't know which of my own memories to even believe anymore. I will say that this coincides with my dad's alcoholism and periodic nervous breakdowns phase that led to my parents' divorce within a year. So take that with a grain of salt and all that. What is significant either way, though, is that whatever happened, it made my dad hyperfixate on the possibility of preternatural psychoelectrical manipulation from then on. When the SLI phenomenon came into the public consensus a few years later, he followed it almost religiously. A sidebar, but after he left when I was a teenager, we had a pretty rocky relationship for years after. I blamed him for just about everything wrong in my life with varying degrees of actual fairness. That said, a memory that I always treasured was confiding in him my silly-sounding self-professed ability to make street lamps turn on and off, and to my surprise having my perpetually stoic and skeptical father not only listening but believing me, even discussing wild theories that I would come up with like energy fields and other BS. I had imagined as if we were engaging in a serious academic discussion. Months later, he even gave me a book on the subject as a birthday gift. What I at the time interpreted as a long overdue but sincere attempt to reconnect with his son, even over something that he probably thought was silly, has now come to represent a joyless event of me accidentally providing a new connection to his secret obsession. I don't know how exactly to feel about that, but I'll save that for my therapist. For now, I'm just gonna finally tie my conspiracy theorist rambling together and let all of you draw your own conclusions. My dad's notes mentioned that he believed that studies were being done at sliders like me confirming their abilities, to the point of even showing that some could control it, but that the government was covering it all up for some reason. His bitterness and obsession about these periods of lost memory only grew when the early Alzheimer's began to hit, and I have suspect that he intentionally drank himself to death afterwards to avoid the prospect of going through that kind of involuntary memory loss again. What I do know is, if his notes are to be believed, this is not only a real thing, but one that only scratches the surface of something bigger. I just don't quite know what that is. Theories welcome.